Hello. We are rapidly approaching the end of 2025, and I always find at this time of year that things start to get very, very busy, both with work and socially. And I'm also made aware that there are lots of books that I have been planning to read this year, which I haven't got to yet. So I find it useful to make a reading plan for the end of the year to organize what I definitely want to get to. And something that helps me do that is the end of the year book tag, which is a series of questions all about this subject matter. So I'm going to go through this and answer these questions, and I'll put these questions in the description below. So if you want to answer these yourself in the comments, or if you have a YouTube channel and you want to make your own response, I would love to hear about your own answers and what are your top priorities to get to before the end of the year. So the very first question, I'm going to have a sip of tea first as well. Are there any books you started this year that you need to finish? And yes, I have a few. When I looked through my books that I realized that I need to get to. So there is How to End a Story, which is the collected diaries of Australian author Helen Garner. And this was listed for the Baillie Gifford Prize this year. And this is a book that I haven't really been racing through because I don't think it's a book that's intended to be read from cover to cover just over one session, which would be a really long day because it's a very long book. But because it is just all these small little snippets of diary entries, of insights into her life, and going from the late 70s to the late 1990s. And it follows her through her writing career and her issues she's having with her relationship and being a mother, and socially being in the writing community in Australia. And one section I just read where she comments about Virginia Woolf in her diary often writes that she's not up to the job of recording her encounters with her friends, but she launches on it anyway and is soon merrily swimming along, very sharp, especially about other women. And yes, Woolf definitely is very sharp about other women and other writers. And so, yeah, it's so interesting seeing her, what she's reading at the time and thinking about, and her commentary on the books that she's reading as well. And yeah, I'm just really enjoying sort of taking my time with this and maybe just reading a few pages first thing in the morning or more. And yeah, it's really interesting getting an insight into that. And then there's a novel called The Boyhood of Cain by Michael Amherst, which I started much earlier this year when I was on a long train journey, and I was really getting into it. But then once I got home, there were some other books that I was prioritizing reading, and I meant to go back to this, and I just haven't yet. And even though it's a relatively short novel, yeah, I just haven't finished it yet. But I really want to, because it follows a boy who's going to a private school where his father is the headmaster, I think, or yeah, is the headmaster. But then his father is somewhat disgraced, and they need to leave the school and move to a different town. But he is so sort of caught up in this boy is so caught up in what is happening in his own life that he's not entirely aware of what everything that his parents are going through. And I quite like that is so, sorry, I had to cough. And he's so centered on himself and his own emotions because he's an adolescent boy. It's yeah, but he's going through a lot himself, and at that age we're not as cognizant of what is happening to our parents. But I like the level that we as readers are aware of larger things that are going on with the parents, while also getting this real insight into his experience and his boyhood. And then there are a couple of short story collections, which I always feel like with short story collections, I mean, you can kind of pick it up and put it down as you're reading it and reading the different stories. But especially over the Halloween period, I've been enjoying reading aloud to my husband some of the stories of Daphne du Maurier from this new collection of hers. Obviously, they're old stories, but they're the newly collected in this book called called After Midnight. And this includes some of her most classic stories, like The Birds. I read The Birds for the very first time, and that was so enjoyable. I mean, it takes place in Cornwall instead of in California, like in Hitchcock's movie, and she just creates such a tense atmosphere in her writing. And I also read this story about an actress called Leading Lady, which was very good as well. There's this great psychological like build up in the story of a tension going on, but also there's a kind of underlying sense of humor, I think, going through her fiction as well. And so, yeah, I want to continue on and read more of her short fiction because, yeah, in fiction-wise, I've only read Rebecca before. So, yeah, definitely want to explore more of Daphne du Maurier and her novels eventually as well. And then there's another short story collection that I also started around the spooky period called You Glow in the Dark by Liliana Colanzi, translated by Chris Andrews. And this is a Bolivian collection of short stories that also has a bit of a sinister edge to it that is looking at large issues, kind of apocalyptic issues in our worlds, but focused through the lens of these individuals who have all their own selfish motivations. And yeah, I really like the atmosphere that's being created in these short stories as well. So question 2 is, do you have an autumnal book to transition into the end of the year? And I made an autumnal reading list, but I can't help adding more books to it because there are a few that I've been really wanting to get to and that I think will be good for the mood of this time of year. So there's Fiona Melrose's most recent novel called Even Beyond Death. And this novel is set in the mid 1600s and follows a Marquis Jehan, who is, he is aware that for his social status and his wealth, he needs to marry a woman, but he is more attracted to the man that is his servant, who is attendant to him. And so it follows all of the tension and scandal of that. And I think it sounds like a really good ride. And I've also really enjoyed Fiona Melrose's writing in the past. Her novel Midwinter I thought was really excellent. And so yeah, even though the overall sound of this story just kind of sounds like a bit of a romp, but I think in Fiona Melrose's hands it'll be really, really good. And there's also The Course of the Heart by M. John Harrison. And I saw him speak at the Edinburgh Book Festival this year, and I really enjoyed the way that he talked. And this follows a group of individuals who met when they were at university and had a strong connection to each other in their academic life, and they lost one member of their group, and it follows them as they reconnect and perform a kind of arcane ritual. And I think there's a kind of mystery at the center of this novel, which I want to read and try to figure out for myself, because in M. John Harrison, when he was talking about it, he said he forgot what, like, he knew when he was writing it, he knew what the answer was to the mystery at the center of the book, but he's since forgotten it. And I just kind of like that element of it. And so, yeah, he's a British writer that is very well regarded and that I've always meant to read. And then another kind of semi-autumnal book that I do really want to get to is Sayaka Murata's new novel called Vanishing World, which follows a woman in this kind of different future setting where birth and reproduction are handled in a very different way than they are today. And so following her through the experiences of that. And Murata's writing, I think, is just so striking and original. Definitely a bit creepy and unsettling, but also a really interesting, different way of looking at the world. And also a book that I'm reading in kind of transition into winter is Snow Country by Yasunari Kawabata, the great Nobel Prize winner. And I'm reading this with my online book club. So if you want to join us in reading and discussing this book in December, then yeah, I'm really looking forward to this in terms of getting into the autumn season. Question 3 is there a new release you're still waiting for? Well, I've been sent an advance copy of this, but the new volume of On the Calculation of Volume, or the third book in the series, and I'm so eager to read this. So this is being published in the US on November 18th, which the protagonist of this book, that's the day which he is living over and over and over again. But here in the UK, this is being published on November 20th, just because I think all books in the UK are published on a Thursday. And so unfortunately, they weren't able to sync up the publication date with the recurring day in this book. But I'm so keen to see where the story goes to next in this, because the end of book 2, it was quite a cliffhanger. And so yeah, I'm really looking forward to diving into this. Question 4 is, what are 3 books you want to read before the end of the year? And 3 that I've kind of set for myself that I'm especially keen on is Deborah Tompkins' most recent book, The Wilder Path. And this, I absolutely loved her previous book. It was one of my favorite books that I read last year. So yes, I've been really anticipating this new book. And this follows an environmentalist who gets caught on a cliffside when she kind of goes out in really bad weather, and so she gets kind of trapped in this small cave, and it shows how well the immediacy of her experience and the danger of that, but also looking at larger environmental issues. And she just has such an interesting way of writing and giving this different look at the world that I really appreciate, that considers humanity in a very moving way. And another book that I'm especially keen to get to before the end of the year is Robert Seathaller's most recent novel called The Cafe with No Name, which is translated by Katie Derbyshire. And this follows a man who's always had a dream to open his own cafe, and he does that. And it's about his experiences of that and all of the people that he encounters that come into this cafe. And there's such a great humanity to Robert Seathaller's writing that, and I've heard such good things about this novel. My friend Sarah absolutely loved it as well, and that's made me anticipate it all the more. And then finally, the final book I want to read is Deviance by Santanu Bhattacharya. And this novel follows a couple of gay men in India who are of very different generations and who are struggling to find their place both within society and establish meaningful relationships. And I like this kind of dynamic look at different generations and the way that sexuality can be handled between them. And I'd run into this author at the London Film Festival when I was going to a screening, and I was waiting for it to begin, and he very kindly came up to me and introduced himself, and we had a lovely chat. And so I'm really eager to get to this. And question 4 is, what are... oh, no, I already did question 4. Okay, question 5 is there a book you think could still shock you and become your favorite book of the year? And one that I'm highly anticipating is The Lack of Light by Nino Harutachvili. And this is translated by Charlotte Collins and Ruth Martin. And this takes place in the country of Georgia and follows a series of characters over a tumultuous period in the history of this country. And I absolutely loved the Haritaj previous novel, The Eighth Life. It was such a big, sweeping epic that I just got completely drawn into, and I'm hoping that the same thing happens with this new book. I've read some very good reviews of it, so I have very high expectations, and yeah, I think it might become one of my favorites for the year. So the sixth and final question in this tag is, have you already started making reading plans for next year? Because we readers can't help ourselves that even though there are lots and lots of books that we still want to get to before the end of the year, it's hard not to look ahead and start making reading plans for 2026. So I have a few books that publishers have kindly sent me advance copies of, and they are by authors that I've read before and loved their previous books. So I'm so looking forward to them. So there's Douglas Stewart's new novel, John of John, and so excited about this because I've loved his first two novels, and I saw him briefly mention this book when he interviewed the author Sinead Gleason, and I went to see that talk. And Sinead Gleason's most recent novel, Hagstone, is set on an island, and he hinted, I'm writing a novel that's set on an island as well. And so this follows a young man whose father calls him back to their native island because his father is going through some issues, and he feels torn between this father and an aunt of his who is in Glasgow, and kind of negotiating between these family members, but also while on this island, hoping that there will be some other lonely men that he can meet and connect with. And so it's following the drama of that. And yes, I'm so excited about this. And also Jenny Fagan has a new novel called The Delusions. And this novel has a really inventive premise in that it follows an individual who works in admin for the recently deceased, and so she has this kind of bureaucratic job in the afterlife, and which is kind of a nightmarish situation, thinking that we might be stuck in these kind of dull office jobs still, even after we die. But she has been wanting to reconnect with her son, who is still living, and so is really looking forward to that prospect, but also wants him to be living a full and happy life while he has the chance. So exploring the tension of that. So yeah, really creative premise to that. And then finally, Sophie Ward has a new novel called Our Better Natures, which follows three women in a politically tumultuous time in America in the 1970s, and how some of them are happy to kind of go along and keep the status quo, and others want to really reform for change. And and I think Sophie Ward is such a intelligent and perceptive writer. Her first novel, Love and Other Thought Experiments, I thought was such a creative and invigorating read that I'm really looking forward to this new book as well. So this is published in February. The Delusions is published in March. And John of Johns is published, when does this come out? Oh, not until May of next year. So I feel very, very lucky to have received that. And those are the publication dates here in the UK, at least. It might be different in other places. But those are my reading plans for the end of the year. Hopefully I get to all of these books and finishing all of these books before the end of the year, but we'll just have to see, because obviously there are lots and lots more that I want to get to as well. But like I said, I would love to hear your answers to these questions in the comments below. I'd be really keen to hear about your end of the year reading plans, or if you want to do this tag yourself, I would love to see that. But I hope you're doing well and your transition into the end of the year is going well, and that things aren't too hectic. And I will speak to you again soon. Bye-bye.